Hey guys, Stock Series episode 64. Another slow week, slightly down. Obviously, forgive you guys for unsubscribing if you're getting a little bit bored, but still think there's good things to come from this portfolio sort of going forward. And hopefully sort of with crypto rising, we should be making some reasonable additions sort of towards the end of the year. So keep patient if you want to keep following. But yeah, so down about 2,000 this week. Almost all of that has come from these gold and silver stocks. So down about 2,200. Gold and silver taking a real whack this week. Not too much to worry about, but yeah, these sort of things happen. Looking at the ISA, sort of REITs pretty much flat mostly. So the portfolio's actually up just over $1,000, and most of that has come from Argo blockchain. So nearly 24% up in the last week. They've had their NASDAQ secondary listing confirmed actually as next Thursday. So seems a little bit out of the blue. They sort of filed for it and thought it might take a little bit of time to go through. But that's scheduled for next Thursday. So be interesting to see what this sort of brings. A lot of people, I think, sort of thinking it'll immediately go up to Riot Blockchains and Marathon's valuation. Don't quite think it's going to work that way, but we'll see. Should add some more sort of liquidity and US exposure. They're getting added to ETFs and that sort of thing that have Riot and Marathon in, so yeah, should do well. And if we get a rise in Bitcoin price, then yeah, could certainly see this going back to all-time highs sort of within the next couple of months, really. So that has provided the bulk of the gain. Bitcoin itself, the ETP up 5%, so done pretty well. Having a good day today, even outside of market time, which is always a worry. So gold and silver stocks, as I say, down a bit. Did sort of rise up during the week, but yeah, sends them in below 90p now. Seems a hell of a bargain, but I'm not adding. Obviously, the gold and silver position is fairly big enough as it is for me. So, yeah, as I say, the REIT's sort of fairly flat. So it's First Majestic. Very choppy week, though. Polymetal down, same as all the others. Realty Income, pretty flat. Stag, pretty flat. Sylvania, pretty rough week. Palladium seems to be having a hell of a downturn at the moment. Rhodium sort of not doing particularly well either. But yeah, 93p still seems fair valuation. They're growing aside from the commodity prices, so should do well. And yeah, the Tritax is sort of having a bit of a flat week, similar to the others, and Vici, they're all sort of, all the REITs are around 1% down mostly. And the invest account has barely moved, so 147.8 down to 147.5. Crazy small volatility for sort of fairly large portfolio, which has been quite a bit of ups and downs in here. Sort of a lot of US stuff down sort of 1% or 2%. Airtel Africa having a reasonable week, so this was sort of my alternative to BT Group, the telecom provider for the non-UK watchers. Chinese tech having another crappy week. Still on its downtrend, not knowing where this is going to end, but hopefully I'm sort of thinking this may sort of bottom out towards Christmas time, and I'll be buying big with the crypto sales. So Alibaba, Process for the 10-cent exposure, and Baidu. So interesting. And probably the emerging markets ETF fairly big. So Anthem actually had a really good week. That's been sort of helping the portfolio stay up. Not really sure what's caused this. Might have to see if there's any news. Archer Daniels having a reasonably good week, back above 60. So that's pretty good. ASOS, bit of a rough midweek. Did actually drop down to just below £30. And I had some dividends, about £85 of dividends come into the portfolio over the last sort of week or so, I think. And I put pretty much all of that into ASOS at £29.95, I think it was. So that was good. Had a little rise back on Friday. So, but yeah, 1% down on the week's not too much to cry about. So brought my average down to £34.73 from £35. Still think this has got room to do well. Yeah, most of the other stuff sort of fairly flat. Even Baidu not actually done all that badly. Do seem to be fairly unaffected by most of the regulations actually, so pretty positive with them. Bank's not doing too bad. Barrett sort of a little bit up and down. Bristol Myers does seem to be struggling at the moment. Broadcom actually doing quite well, over $500 now. So that's been doing reasonably well over the last month. Sort of fairly slow and steady gains, but yeah, doing pretty well. Good dividend and up sort of 14% on that. So pretty happy with that. Caterpillar down under $200 now. It's interesting. I never sort of made this particularly big position because it seemed to be sort of fairly overvalued. I just sort of kind of like the company and think the infrastructure bills will provide them a reasonable amount of work, but don't really want to make it a huge position at that value. So might have to keep looking at them and see where earnings are going. eBay had a little rise midweek, so 2% up on the week. Expect they're probably just ferociously buying back shares as they have been, which is good. FedEx pretty flat. Glencore, yeah, the base metals having a really tough week. So Glencore 3.67% down, not as bad as the others. You'll see some of the bad ones. Hewlett Packard pretty flat. Hymax I bought in too early. Would consider making this a larger position later on with the crypto sales. It's not really a sort of a core position that I had before, but does seem a reasonable value and sort of in the semiconductor sort of components industry. They're not really sort of strictly semiconductors, but yeah, seem a reasonable company. Intel slightly up. International Paper down again. Haven't really looked into this in a while, but seems sort of fairly steady company. I expect it's just inflation rises. Might need to have a little bit more of a detailed look to see if everything's still okay. Invesco had a good week, 6.7%. Haven't seen the news on this again, but seems fairly sort of non-volatile stock, to be honest. Not a huge range there for 3 months in the current market. In an ordinary market, that probably would be seen as volatile, but anything can happen at the moment. So core emerging markets ETF down 1.5% with the China sell-off. Japan actually in the positive again, so done quite well over the last month. Pretty happy with that. I was in the red on that a fair bit, so that's up 5% now. Clean energy still lagging, not too bothered about that because it's a relatively small position. I want to bump up all of these sort of, as I say, with the crypto sell-off later in the year, assuming that comes. Europe fairly flat. Johnson & Johnson's flat. Kia Group, I'm still sort of waiting to sell out of. They've had their results midweek, seem pretty good. Turned a profit. Wondering if it's just sort of institutions aren't 100% happy, but I think they should do well, and sort of not sure where I'd be looking to sell out really. Maybe sort of 130, maybe 150. See what it does. Water ETF, you know it's a bad week when the water ETF's down, sort of nearly 3%. So that sort of seemed to top. Obviously, been doing really well over the last sort of few months. I was in the iShares one, so it's obviously showing a high price. But yeah, I'd essentially been sort of riding that wave all the way up in the iShares one. So it's in the red, but not really in the red. Legal and General, slightly up for the week. Lennar, slightly up. Lockheed, still selling off. Does go through these rocky periods. But again, one I would top up later on. Micron, slightly up. Nintendo, slightly down. Interesting to see the third quarter results from them later on. Comparing to last year is going to be tough. Porsche down 3%. Not too bad. Seem to be having a real rocky spell. Volkswagen down as well. Chip shortage sort of probably is weighing a little bit hard now. But they did say that they're selling quite a lot of Taycan electric vehicles. So not too bad. Porsche themselves doing quite well. Obviously, as I say, every time, this isn't really Porsche stock, it's just VW stock in a different name. Process, 7% down. I think this is getting whacked from Tencent again. A lot of the recent regulations in China seem to be hitting Tencent quite hard, limiting gaming down to almost nothing. So that doesn't help. But long term, I don't see China would kill off their big companies. Tencent obviously has a huge part in sort of payments and app stores and everything with WeChat. So they'll be fine, I think. Raytheon pretty flat. Renault down slightly. Most of the EVs down. And car makers. So base metals. Rio Tinto, £48 now. Didn't really expect quite this violent a drop on steel prices. Last sort of 2 months just been tanking, sort of still above pre-COVID prices. So that's one thing to sort of take as consolidation or consolation prize rather. But can't see this doing too badly. Cash flow is sort of pretty good on a price to free cash flow, sort of even from pre-COVID prices. So if we go back to that, then they still look good. So again, later on in the year, I'd certainly top up. Long term, they've got interest in lithium, so pretty good. And copper should do well in the sort of short to medium term. So yeah, very happy with them. Shell pretty flat. Samsung extremely flat. Happy that I'm in the positive on Sega now as well. So that's good. Seneca just down slightly. Siemens up. I'd say not a huge amount happening with most of these. Stellantis actually up considering the others. That's not too bad. TSMC down quite a bit. Always thinking it's a little overvalued, so not too bothered about that drop. Taylor Wimpey down slightly. Yes, I bought a Tesla share. Hate myself for doing it really, but kind of a hedge. We'll see what that does. Already up sort of 4.7%. So we'll see. I don't really own any growth. I don't own any of the FANGs, any of the sort of Microsoft, Amazons and that sort of thing. Don't really want to own them either at the moment. Don't even own them actually in any ETFs. Don't have an S&P 500 ETF, so got no exposure at all. So I just thought I'd add a little bit of growth, and thought Tesla seems to be the one everyone likes. So there you go. Turtle Beach having a good week, 7%. So that had been sort of a little bit rough last month, but yeah, having a good month overall. Pretty happy with that. Tyson up slightly. Vale actually worse than Rio Tinto. They're fairly heavy on steel as well, or iron ore. But yeah, they got some other stuff, nickel, I believe, and yeah, even a little bit of oil and gas I think they're getting rid of. So still seems a good one and a small position. I would consider building that up. Nickel sort of obviously quite important in the EV space, so should do well longer term. Video games down. Again, want to sort of have this as a larger position, so fairly happy with that. Beatrice down slightly, and Volkswagen sort of pretty much down the same as Porsche. So yeah, obviously remember this shows as quite a bit in the red, but I just moved this from my ISA to the invest account a while ago, so I actually bought in about €125. So still quite a bit in the green overall, but yeah, not done all that well in the last few months. Be interesting to see their sort of numbers going forward next few months from the EVs with sort of the chip shortage, and yeah, quite heavily sort of invested in China. They've got a lot of joint ventures with sort of other Chinese companies. That's the way they're trying to sort of push their China exposure. A little bit of sort of infighting between the different companies and Volkswagen. So yeah, we'll see how that pans out. So yeah, very slow week. Could be a few more slow weeks, I think. But yeah, September sort of people bringing up the September charts and sort of showing, going back in history, September's the worst month for stocks on average. So I think that's a little bit of sort of astrology. Not really sure to pay too much interest in that, but seems an interesting thing. Yeah, so leave your thoughts in the comments below, and like and subscribe if you want to see more. I'll probably do a live stream on Tuesday as well, if you want to tune in. So yeah, see you then.